Have you ever felt drained trying to explain yourself to someone who seems determined to misunderstand you? It's a frustrating and exhausting cycle, one where no matter how much you clarify, your words are twisted, your intentions questioned, and your energy depleted. You wonder, why don't they see my heart? Why do they resist what I'm saying? Here's the truth. Not everyone deserves an explanation, and not every battle is meant for you to fight. Jesus himself taught us this profound lesson in Matthew 7:6 when he said, "Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces." At first glance, this might sound harsh, but Jesus wasn't being cruel. He was being wise. He understood that some people are not in a position to value or respect the sacred truths we carry. These pearls represent the wisdom, peace, and calling God has placed on your life. But sharing them with the wrong people, those influenced by negativity, jealousy, or even spiritual forces, can leave you feeling bruised and broken. This isn't just a biblical concept, it's a universal principle. Even C.S. Lewis observed, "Don't waste words on people who deserve your silence. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all." Silence is not weakness. Silence is wisdom. It's a declaration of trust in God, who fights your battles far better than you ever could. In this video, we'll uncover the power of silence and why it's one of the greatest shields in a noisy, chaotic world. We'll explore how silence preserves your peace, protects your spiritual authority, and frees you from the exhausting cycle of defending yourself against those who are not ready or willing to hear the truth. By the end of this message, you'll understand why Jesus modeled silence in his own life, how to discern when to speak and when to remain silent, and how trusting God with your battles can transform your life. Let's dive in. The spiritual dynamics behind misunderstandings. Misunderstandings are often seen as simple human conflicts, but they're rarely just that. Beneath the surface lies a deeper spiritual dynamic that goes unnoticed unless you look through the lens of faith. The Apostle Paul reminds us in Ephesians 6:12, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." In other words, the real battle is not with the person standing in front of you, it's with the unseen forces influencing them. Think about it. Have you ever been in a situation where no matter how much you tried to explain yourself, the other person just didn't seem to understand? Worse, they twisted your words, questioned your motives, and left you feeling more frustrated than before. That's because, in some cases, you're not just engaging with a person, you're engaging with the spiritual influences operating through them. A striking example of this is found in Luke 8:2, where scripture tells us that Mary Magdalene was possessed by 7 demons before her deliverance. Imagine interacting with her during that time. Were you just talking to Mary, or were you engaging with 7 different spiritual entities working through her? Each spirit carried its own agenda, and any attempt to reason or connect with her would have been met with confusion or resistance. This same dynamic is at play today. Some of the people in your life are not operating alone. Their actions, attitudes, and words may be heavily influenced by spiritual darkness. When you try to reason with them, it feels like hitting a brick wall because you're not just addressing the person, you're addressing the spiritual forces manipulating them. C.S. Lewis puts it this way: "There are 2 equal and opposite errors into which our race can fall about the devils. One is to disbelieve in their existence. The other is to believe and to feel an excessive and unhealthy interest in them." Many of us fall into the first error, dismissing the reality of spiritual warfare altogether. But ignorance of this battle doesn't protect you from its effects. Jesus himself understood this reality and acted accordingly. When he encountered a demon-possessed man in Mark 1:25, the demon tried to engage him in conversation, saying, "What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us?" How did Jesus respond? He didn't argue. He didn't explain himself. He simply said, "Be quiet, come out of him." With that, the demon was silenced and cast out. This moment teaches us a profound truth. Not every conflict requires an explanation. Not every person deserves your words. Spiritual forces thrive on confusion, division, and distraction. They seek to draw you into endless debates, draining your energy and keeping you focused on the wrong fight. When you recognize the spiritual dynamics behind misunderstandings, it becomes easier to let go of the need to explain yourself. You stop taking every word or action personally because you realize the real battle isn't about you, it's about the spiritual forces at work. This discernment is key to preserving your peace and staying aligned with God's purpose for your life. Ultimately, God calls us to fight these battles in prayer, not with arguments. When you stop wasting energy trying to convince people who are spiritually compromised, you reclaim your strength and focus on the real enemy. Silence in these moments isn't avoidance, it's wisdom. As C.S. Lewis wisely said, Satan has his strategy, and we must not be ignorant of his devices. Recognize the unseen battle, and you'll no longer feel the need to defend yourself against every misunderstanding. Instead, you'll stand firm in God's authority, trusting Him to handle the fight. Why silence is your shield. Silence isn't just a pause in the noise, it's a spiritual shield that protects you from unnecessary battles and preserves your inner peace. In a world where voices clamor to be heard, the ability to stay silent amidst conflict is a profound act of strength and wisdom. Silence is not avoidance, it is a strategic choice to protect what is sacred within you. When Jesus encountered opposition, He often responded with silence, not because He lacked answers, but because He understood the power of restraint. In Mark 1:25, when a demon-possessed man tried to provoke Jesus into a dialogue, the response was simple and direct. "Be quiet. Come out of him." Jesus didn't engage in an argument, defend His authority, or provide explanations. He silenced the enemy and moved forward. This act of silence was not weakness. It was authority in action. Silence protects you from exposing yourself to spiritual attacks. Unlike God, who is omniscient, the enemy gathers information from what you say. Every unnecessary explanation, every defense of your character, becomes an opportunity for spiritual forces to twist your words and use them against you. C.S. Lewis put it aptly, Satan's strategy is distraction. If he can't make you sin, he will keep you busy defending yourself. When you stay silent, you deny the enemy a foothold. You preserve your peace and refuse to let external chaos disrupt your spirit. This is especially important when dealing with people under spiritual influence. Their reactions are often not about you, but about the spiritual forces at work in them. Explaining yourself or defending your actions to such individuals can feel like talking to a wall. That's because you're not just addressing them, you're addressing the spirits influencing them, and these spirits thrive on confusion and conflict. Consider the wisdom in Proverbs 17:28. Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues. Silence doesn't just protect your peace, it reflects your spiritual discernment. It communicates that you trust God to fight your battles rather than engaging in fruitless debates that drain your energy. Silence also has the power to disarm those who oppose you. When you stop defending yourself, you leave no ammunition for others to twist. The enemy thrives on reaction. By choosing silence, you deny him the ability to manipulate your words and actions. This doesn't mean you ignore every conflict or injustice, but rather that you discern when to speak and when to let silence be your response. Practically, this means you don't have to justify every decision, explain every choice, or react to every insult. As Jesus demonstrated during his trial before Pilate in Matthew 27 verse 14, silence can be more powerful than words. Pilate was astonished when Jesus gave no answer to the accusations against him. In that moment, Jesus' silence spoke louder than any defense could have. It was a declaration of trust in God's plan and a refusal to engage with those who couldn't understand his purpose. In your life, silence can serve as a shield in similar ways. It preserves your strength. Engaging in unnecessary debates depletes your emotional and spiritual energy. It protects your peace. Silence guards your heart and mind from the chaos of external conflicts. It shows spiritual maturity. Choosing when to remain silent is a reflection of your trust in God's ability to vindicate you. Let this be your guiding principle. Not every battle requires your voice, and not every person deserves an explanation. Silence is a shield that allows God to work on your behalf while you stand firm in peace and authority. Trust that he sees every attack, every misunderstanding, and every twisted word, and he will fight for you in ways far beyond what your words ever could. The consequences of casting pearls before swine. Jesus is teaching in Matthew 7:6. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces, is a profound reminder of the importance of discernment. The pearls in this passage represent the sacred truths, insights, and gifts God has entrusted to us. They are valuable, precious, and meant to be shared wisely. When we offer them to those who cannot appreciate or understand their value, the consequences can be emotionally, spiritually, and relationally damaging. 1. Emotional and spiritual exhaustion. When you share your most treasured insights, dreams, or wisdom with people who are unwilling or unable to value them, you risk becoming emotionally drained and spiritually depleted. Imagine sharing a deep, personal revelation from God with someone, only for them to dismiss it or ridicule it. This rejection can leave you feeling discouraged, misunderstood, and even questioning the worth of what God has given you. C.S. Lewis captured this principle when he said, "Don't let your happiness depend on something you may lose." Sharing sacred things with the wrong people places your emotional and spiritual well-being in jeopardy. It exposes you to unnecessary criticism and rejection, which can sap your joy and weaken your faith. 2. The risk of being misunderstood. When pearls are cast before swine, they are often trampled underfoot. In the same way, the wisdom, insights, or truths you share with the wrong audience may be twisted, misunderstood, or outright rejected. This can lead to frustration and conflict as your words are taken out of context or misused against you. This principle is seen in the story of Eve in Genesis 3. When Eve engaged in a conversation with the serpent, she opened herself to deception. The serpent twisted her words, leading her into confusion and ultimately sin. Similarly, when we attempt to reason with people who are spiritually resistant, we risk our words being turned against us. 3. Relational strain and conflict. Another consequence of casting pearls before swine is the strain it places on relationships. When someone is not ready to receive what you offer, their rejection or misuse of your words can create tension and emotional pain. Jesus warns that those who trample your pearls may also turn and tear you to pieces. This isn't just about emotional hurt, it reflects a deeper truth about human nature. People who cannot value what you offer may react with jealousy, resentment, or even hostility. Their attacks may feel personal, but they often stem from a spiritual resistance or lack of understanding. The importance of discernment. Jesus' teaching is a call to discernment. Not everyone is spiritually prepared to understand the sacred things God has placed in your heart. Recognizing this isn't arrogance, it's wisdom. Sharing too freely can lead to unnecessary pain, while reserving your pearls for the right people ensures that they are valued and appreciated. Jesus modeled this discernment throughout his ministry. While he taught parables to the crowds, he reserved deeper revelations for his disciples, those who were hungry for truth and willing to listen. Similarly, he chose silence in the face of spiritual resistance, such as when he was questioned by the Pharisees. Silence as protection. One of the most powerful ways to protect your pearls is through silence. Not every accusation deserves a response, and not every criticism warrants an explanation. Silence is not avoidance, it is wisdom in action. It preserves your peace, safeguards your energy, and denies others the opportunity to misuse your words. Isaiah 30:15 reminds us, "In quietness and trust is your strength." By choosing silence, you protect what is sacred and align yourself with God's timing. You trust him to reveal the truth to those who are ready to receive it. Casting pearls before swine can lead to emotional exhaustion, spiritual depletion, and relational strain. But with discernment, prayer, and the wisdom to choose silence when necessary, you can safeguard the sacred gifts God has entrusted to you. Trust in God's timing and guidance to share your pearls with those who will truly value them. Remember, not every battle requires your voice, and not every person deserves your explanation. Silence can be your shield, protecting your peace and preserving the sanctity of what is most precious. Jesus as the model of silent strength. Jesus exemplifies the ultimate balance of strength and restraint. teaching us that silence can be a profound act of trust and authority. Throughout his ministry, Jesus chose his words carefully, often remaining silent when others would feel compelled to speak. His silence wasn't weakness. It was a declaration of trust in God's perfect plan. 1. The silence before Pilate. One of the most striking examples of Jesus' silent strength is found during his trial before Pontius Pilate. Matthew 27:14 tells us, "But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor." Amidst a barrage of false accusations, Jesus remained silent, refusing to defend himself or argue his case. Pilate was bewildered. Most people in Jesus' position would have pleaded for their lives, but Jesus knew Pilate wasn't spiritually equipped to understand the truth. Jesus' silence was not passivity. It was a profound act of trust in God's justice. He understood that no human words could alter his divine mission, and he reserved his energy for the real battle, the one that would be won on the cross. 2. Silence as a weapon of trust. Jesus' silence teaches us an important lesson. Not every accusation deserves a response, and not every critic merits an explanation. Isaiah 30:15 highlights this truth. In quietness and trust is your strength. Silence in the face of opposition is a declaration that God is in control and will fight our battles. It shifts the focus from human validation to divine vindication. 3. Preserving energy for the real battle. Jesus knew the importance of conserving his strength for what mattered most. Engaging with Pilate or arguing with his accusers would have been a distraction from his ultimate purpose. Similarly, when we choose silence over unnecessary arguments, we preserve our energy for the battles God has called us to fight. Jesus' silence before Pilate wasn't avoidance. It was wisdom, strength, and trust in action. His restraint reminds us that silence is sometimes the most powerful response we can give. By following his example, we learn to discern when to speak and when to remain silent, trusting that God's plan will prevail. Let Jesus' silence inspire you to step back, let go of the need to defend yourself, and trust God to work on your behalf. Practical steps to embrace silence. Embracing silence is an intentional act of faith, wisdom, and self-control. It's not about retreating or avoiding conflict, but about choosing your battles wisely and trusting God to guide your actions. Here are practical steps to help you cultivate silence as a spiritual shield in your daily life. 1. Discern your battles. Not every conflict deserves your attention, and not every person deserves an explanation. Before you speak, ask yourself, is this conversation necessary? Will my words bring clarity or escalate the situation? Is this a battle God has called me to fight? Proverbs 17:27 says, "The one who has knowledge uses words with restraint, and whoever has understanding is even-tempered." Silence shows wisdom and maturity when the battle is not yours to fight. 2. Turn to prayer first. Instead of defending yourself, take your concerns to God. Prayer shifts your focus from the problem to God's ability to handle it. Philippians 4:6 reminds us, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." In moments of uncertainty, let prayer guide your words or your silence. Protect what is sacred. Your wisdom, peace, and calling are pearls that not everyone can value. Reserve your energy and insights for those who are spiritually open to receive them. Jesus warned in Matthew 7:6, "Do not throw your pearls to pigs." Before sharing, ask yourself if the other person is ready to hear what you're offering. If not, silence can protect both your peace and your purpose. 4. Trust God to vindicate you. When you feel wrongly accused or misunderstood, remember Exodus 14:14. "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Silence is an act of surrender, declaring, "God, I trust you to defend me." You don't need to justify yourself to those who won't understand. God will reveal the truth in his time. Silence is a tool of strength, discernment, and trust. By choosing when to speak and when to stay quiet, you protect your peace and create space for God to work. Let your silence reflect your faith, trusting that God fights for you, defends you, and reveals truth in his perfect timing. Silence is more than the absence of words. It is a powerful expression of wisdom, trust, and spiritual authority. In a world where noise often drowns out discernment, Learning to embrace silence allows you to step back from unnecessary battles and focus on what truly matters. Throughout this message, we've seen that silence is not weakness, it's strength. From Jesus' profound silence before Pilate, Matthew 27:14, to his instruction not to cast pearls before swine, Matthew 7:6, we've explored how silence preserves peace, protects sacred truths, and demonstrates trust in God's justice. It shifts the burden of defense from our hands into God's capable ones, freeing us from the exhausting need to explain or justify ourselves. C.S. Lewis aptly wrote, "Don't waste words on people who deserve your silence. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all." Silence is not avoidance. It's strategic wisdom that aligns with God's will and His perfect timing. When you stop engaging in fruitless arguments or defending yourself against those who misunderstand you, you protect your peace and safeguard your spiritual energy. Silence declares your faith that God will fight your battles, as promised in Exodus 14:14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Moreover, silence allows space for God to reveal truth, both to you and to others. It sharpens your discernment, enabling you to recognize the real battles, those fought in prayer and spiritual warfare, and avoid wasting energy on distractions. As you move forward, let silence be your strength. Protect the sacred pearls God has entrusted to you, your wisdom, peace, and calling. When faced with criticism or misunderstanding, pause and ask, is this a battle worth fighting? Are my words necessary? Or is silence the wiser response? Declare today, I trust God to fight my battles. Silence is my shield. Let this truth guide you as you navigate the challenges of life with wisdom and grace. May God grant you the discernment to know when to speak and when to remain silent. May He fill you with peace, wisdom, and confidence as you trust Him to defend and vindicate you. Remember, in quietness and trust lies your strength. God bless you as you walk in the power of silence and the assurance of His presence.